Okay, so welcome back. And now we're going to look at another example, use in alumni relations at Dartmouth College. And we have on the phone with us here 3 people. Mike Backman, who's the Director of Alumni Information Resources. Hi, Mike.
Hi, Doug.
And Roberta Moore, who's the Director of Alumni Continuing Education and Travel. Hi, Roberta.
Hi there, Doug.
And Marianne Hankel, who's a Program Manager who uses Advisor quite a bit in these areas. And we're going to look at a couple of specific areas. Trip planning, talk about that and show some examples. Youth with the regional clubs, talk a little bit then about ad hoc questions that come up all the time that can be answered. And then some recent work on, speaking of Dartmouth, which is the alumni newsletter looking at click-through analysis. So now let's take it away.
Great. This is Roberta Moore. I'm going to start out talking about our travel program. At Dartmouth, we run one of the oldest travel programs. We've been in operation for about 35 years, and we offer alumni the opportunity to travel with members of our faculty, to get to know the world, get to know each other, and improve their relationship and hopefully enhance their relationship with Dartmouth. In the past, and through the decades, the traditional method for marketing our travel program was that we would work with an outside tour operator who would tell us that for a particular trip to the Baltic, this is an age group of past travelers, and find the alumni in your audience that meet this age criteria, and we'll mail a brochure to them. And and we would do that, and for, as I indicated, several decades, it was hugely successful. Over the years, with increasing print collateral costs, and everyone's looking to digital communications, we have been able to transition and transform the way that we communicate the travel program through our website, through a very dynamic website, and as well as email. And I know that some people are very reticent or worried about sending too much email. And one of the things that we feel that Advisor has allowed us to do is to be very specific, very targeted in the type of email that we send, advertising or inviting individuals to participate. Now, our invitation list, our invitation email, typically can go from maybe 5,000, 6,000 individuals, but we've, I can't say, I hate to make this sound like too much of a commercial, but Advisor has really put in our hands, and specifically, you're going to meet Marianne in a few minutes, put in Marianne's hands the ability to look at our audience in new ways. And one example that I definitely want to share is one that we can say has been hugely successful. It's happened very recently. I acquired for Dartmouth a license to run programs, educational programs to Cuba. And not knowing how it was going to be received by the broader audience, we really wanted to go to a select audience, definitely people who traveled with us before, but we thought there was something about international relations or some aspect of Cuba that was going to be attractive to certain people. So I turned it over to Marianne and I said, do your magic, and she's going to tell you a little bit about the magic that she did. What I will preface this and give you a bit of the results that we developed was that she came up with a list of about 6,000 or 7,000, I think is about the number. Oh, about 5,000, she's putting her fingers up. About 5,000 email addresses, and the email message was very, very simple. Dartmouth has a license to run a trip to Cuba. Are you interested? How interested are you? And let us just respond to the message. We don't have a solid itinerary. We don't have a solid price, but let us know if this appeals to you. And from the moment that email hit, we started getting a deluge of responses. And we ended up generating several lists because we went out of the gate with 2 dates identified, one in November and one in February. Ended up with filling both those trips with that one email alone. And it was a process of opening the invitations because, as I mentioned, we asked people to say, I want to go, sign me up, or this is interesting. So we had to time the invitations to those individuals. And now we're working on selling our 3rd trip from that message alone. And so I'm going to ask Marianne to take over here and show you a little bit about her process. And she works extensively with Advisor on every single data pool, whether it's for print, email, or postcards, anything like that. So I'm going to turn it over to Marianne.
All right, great. Thanks, Roberta. So this is where I step in. And as Roberta said, the goal was to get the email invitation into the hands of the people who were the most receptive to the idea of traveling to Cuba. So the good news is, though, that the first probably 3-4 steps of this process are very similar for every search that I do, for every, whether it's an email or a print brochure. So the way I usually start is with a blank palette, and I go by the fact that I want to email this group, not print mail. So I have to get rid of the people who don't have email addresses or do not want to be reached by email. We pull the people who are not emailable, add to that group the people who have told us they just didn't want to receive travel email, and then I exclude all of these folks to make sure that I will not inadvertently pull them back into my email list. Then I go back and I unselect. Now you'll notice that the excluded people stayed excluded down here at the bottom, and I'm going to start to build my list. One of the things we find, people who are receptive to our message have been involved. They have volunteered for the college. They've been involved with clubs and committees or in leadership affairs. So these are all the active, current, and then also the former and past folks who have been involved with the college.
So you've got the mouse in add select mode, so that's actually kind of cool. You're starting with a clean slate, and instead of starting with everybody and taking people out, you're starting at the base and then adding in this group and that group and as you think through it.
Yes, exactly. And then I'm going to do something else here. I'm going to intersect, because at some point in their history they have filled out surveys that tell us a little bit about their interests. And I have found this to be very useful, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to take those people who have been involved with the college, who clearly have good feelings about it, move to the intersect mode, and intersect this with people who have expressed an interest in travel. So now I'm down to 2,000.
And that list is in addition to people who told us, I want information on
Received mail, yeah.
Marianne discovered that there was a great aha moment, that there was a substantial number who had filled out their reunion surveys and said, oh, I like to travel. So that was a great find that she discovered.
Okay. So now I have a pretty good start at a list. I'm going to go back, and now I'm going to switch back to the add mode and start getting more. I mean, we didn't want to go super broad because we weren't sure if it was going to be received well or if we were going to receive too much interest. And so we didn't want to blanket the alumni all over with the idea. And so what I did is I went back to this interest panel, and we have people who have expressed interest in diversity and globalism, as well as international affairs. And then we also have a center on campus, for those who aren't aware, called the Dickey Center for International Understanding. And people who are fans of the Dickey Center tend to be into politics and government and peace and war studies. So I'm just looking for the folks who have an interest in the Dickey Center. Add them. Got us a couple more folks. Now we have sort of a large list. We're up to 6,200. And I want to go back because, I mean, the tour operators were onto something. There are some age ranges that are receptive. And then there are some, you know, who they're either just out of school and they haven't really established themselves. They have the free time. They may not have the money to go on a group trip. And then what I do is I go back here and I sort of bring in the age groups this way. And the beauty of Advisor is I can start conservative. If someone says, I want to make 7,500, if I start with 10,000, I can slowly start to whittle it back to get to the number that I want. So I can back into it that way. Now I'm going to go to subtract mode. And in this case, let's just say I'm going to go from the classes of 1930. I'm going to take out 35 to 50. Someone who graduated in the early 50s is in their 80s. They're still most of them are still able to travel, and if they're not, hopefully they know that. And then I will also take out the relatively young, which let's start just for this purpose here with the 90s. Take these folks out. Now the thing that I do last is that I add in the people who have traveled with us in the past and people who have asked to receive our mailings. I don't want to add them in first because then I might inadvertently pull them back out. That for us falls under our event type, our event codes. I just need to move this over a bit so I can see better. And I will make sure I'm back in add mode, very important.
Add the very good with those mouse selection changes. I'm seeing that. Great job.
And I want to make sure on the mailing list that I have the people who wanted to be included. So here we come up with this list of 5,900, which is close to what I came up with before. And we went to, we sent out the email to this group. What usually happens is we export, the way it works on our end is we export this list of folks that's arranged by advance ID number, and we're able to load that into our email marketing program and design an email and send it out. The beauty of the email program is, and if I could just speak to the results again, is that it tracks the open rate and the click-through rate, as well as lets us know how many people click through the unsubscribe tag. So in this case, our open rate was 27%, and for email marketing, that's pretty high. Only 7 people clicked out of over 5,000 entities. 7 people clicked on unsubscribe, but only 1 person of 5,000 people actually unsubscribed once they got to the screen where they could unsubscribe. So to me, when I'm looking at friend raising, I can feel that I didn't tick anything off by sending them an email that they didn't want to receive. So that's the Cuba example.
Well, and the other nice thing about, we never, Mary Ann said that we want to be careful. We don't want to inundate people with information that they don't want. And so we're always very careful with travel to develop a multi-touch marketing campaign for just about everything that we do. So we have actually picked up, this trip was listed in the Alumni magazine after we sent out this email. So we picked up some people who we might not have identified that didn't get the email, that saw the ad. We also try to utilize some of the other forms of communications that the college offers. There's an email program that you're going to hear later about speaking of Dartmouth. And so we can get some of our trips and some of our different activities listed there. And so the results, as I mentioned, we have sold 2 trips. We are working on our 3rd trip, and I have not opened up the program to the general alumni body other than being in the Alumni magazine. And we have 38 people signed up. And the other nice part is, you didn't talk about pulling parents, but we do have parents on booked on the trip. We have people as young as from the class of 87, and somebody from the class of 49 signed up for the trip. So there's a nice diversity of age group, which is unusual for travel because it typically is for people who have the leisure time, whether they're in retirement or nearing retirement, and the dollars to spend. But this trip, we designed it also in a price point and timing that works well for a wide range of interests. The other,
so one thing that also jumps as you're talking about that is, sorry to jump in, but the data you have, collecting the reunion interest areas. I know a lot of the schools out there aren't doing that, or they're not going into a database, and you've shown a great example of why that's important, because people will self-express interest areas, which you used in a great way here with the trip. Also on the annual fund side for fundraising, that's really important to figure out where people's interest areas are to target. In this case, it's a trip. Over there, it can be messaging to try to bring, connect and engage in a particular area. And I'd encourage all of you in the audience to really think about the use of that data and make an effort to get it in the database so it can be used like this is.
And Mary Ann actually was saying yesterday she'd like to force all of the alums to fill out the interest detail because
you could raffle a trip. How about?
Fill it out, right. The other thing, it's a good segue, Doug, that when you mentioned about gifts and giving, we have another trip example that we'd like to showcase. Mary Ann can pull up or start doing that, which is we offer a wide range of trip experiences, from trips that are about $1,000 all the way up to private jets, which run about $64,000 a person. Now, you certainly don't want to send somebody an invitation to take a private jet trip if they're not in the financially capable of doing so. So we've actually been very successful. The first trip that we offered, which was a print, we only marketed through print, but we went through a selection to look at our donor rating. So we went to 1 through 5 or 6, I believe, and maybe we expanded it all the way to 7 or 8. We looked at job titles, so if there were physicians, CEOs, presidents, things like that, we intersected that. This was done before we had Advisor in our hands, and so we have a long history of successful private jet programs. Now we have another one coming up this fall, and so as Marianne becomes even more skilled at using Advisor, she has developed another way of looking at who we should possibly include and who we might target to possibly take this trip. So Marianne, why don't you jump in again?
Great. I had just received the guidelines from the tour operator on this, and they kind of reiterate everything that Roberta said, job title, education level, that sort of thing. I kind of wanted to go back because I knew I had the Advisor tool and sort of check what their criteria were and see if I couldn't discover something new or a common denominator amongst our past private jet travelers that maybe other people weren't onto. So again, like other searches, I started out with going to the not mailable, and then also adding into that the people who do not want to receive our paper, and those who do not want to receive high-end travel, because we always get a couple complaints of that too. Exclude selected folks. So back again with my mailable people and my blank canvas. So the way to get to your past private jet passengers would be to go to our event tab. What I wanted to do now is be in the ad mode, grab all of our past private, oh yeah, that's right. We also want to, from the participants, exclude unselected, great, our trip. And I will take out the ones that I know are private, or I will, wait, select private jet, and private jet. There was another one called Ancient Kingdoms. Then we went to the land of the Great Buddha after that. Let's get the land of the Great Buddha. And mysteries of 48 private jet passengers. And I thought I would just scroll through the panes to see if I saw something interesting. The age range is pretty broad. That wasn't terribly surprising. I went to locations, also not too surprising. I would need to do something else here. I need to exclude the unselected first. There we go. There we go. Now looking at just demographics of the people who've taken private jet trips. No surprise here. A lot of people are in Connecticut, New York. The next batch would be in Florida. The next panel I went to where I saw something interesting was an interest. Environment, really? I mean, that was a little surprising. 6 of them have an interest in the environment. The carbon footprint on private jet trips is a little bit high. Not surprising on the investments in financial planning or international affairs, but again, I had to make the comment about the environment. And then the financial tab. We've been, as Roberta said, we had written a script for our advanced colleagues that included donor ratings from 1 to 6. But when you look at the people who have actually taken the trips, the largest portion is in donor rating 6. That's 16 of the almost 50 folks were not in the top 4 categories. With 4 and 5 next, nobody had a number 1. And I can't claim to understand how the mind of the super wealthy works, but I'm thinking that the people who are really that wealthy can probably get around on their own, and they don't need Dartmouth to do a private jet. However, at these levels, there's still a desire, and there's a certain amount of bragging rights that go along with private jet trips as well. So that, I thought, was pretty interesting. Our development colleagues may surmise from that the folks who take the private jet trips are probably capable of higher level gifts. I don't know. I just want to make sure they have a really good trip. So that was my interesting financial discovery. And then for employment, I also found something that I thought might help guide my decisions when I pull the next one. So then I went to the employment tab, and I noticed that a lot of them were, not surprisingly, members of boards of directors, CEOs, chairmen, also VPs, principals, partners. When I do the search for the next private jet list, I'll probably turn to these position levels and areas of employment and use the intersect button here. Pull people at these levels, since it appears that donor rating is only somewhat an effective tool for teasing them out. Go to these jobs and these position levels and intersect that with people who have an interest in travel. And not surprised that many of them are finance and financial services, but biotechnology and pharmaceutical. I mean, it makes some sense, but I wouldn't have known that unless I had done this particular search. So that is how I've used it to guide the next project that I'll pull a mailing list for.
Hey, Marion, that's like a really good example of what we've been calling visual discovery, where you're trying to understand the makeup of a group, and
Yep.
you can actually just literally explore the attributes in something like this. And you just went through, I don't know how many attributes are up here, it's like 60 or 70, and you kind of culled out what the most meaningful ones seem to be, and you can now work with them, experiment with them, and go further.
Because age group's pretty easy. I mean, age group we can see in a lot of our, in our own database, and I can pull it that way. But this is not information that I would have seen before. So yeah.
Great. Well, thank you. And I know we're just watching time tick here. We want to get to regional clubs, ad hoc questions, and then the newsletters. So thank you, and let's keep the dialogue moving. What are you guys doing with regional clubs?
All right, this is Mike Backman. I'm Director of Alumni Information Resources. I don't use the tool a whole lot myself. I've helped the groups here in Alumni Relations get up on it. And one of the things we put together for the regional clubs group was a tab specifically designed for them. And what they do with this is they can quickly then come in to this regional clubs tab. We have all of the different clubs over here in the top left little quadrant, and we select a club. So if I select the Southern California Club, you always have to be in the right mode, as we find out. So I'm selecting the Southern California Club, and if I exclude everybody else, what that gives us is a very quick little snapshot that the regional clubs folks can take a screen print of this page and then email it to the clubs. And the clubs love this because it just gives them a very quick snapshot of their club. These are the different schools, our professional schools, and then undergrad population that make up their club. They kind of visually see the age range of their club, with the green being alumni, the orange being parents. Shows them at a very high level, kind of a breakdown between who is emailable or not, a gender breakdown, and then we've put on here the top employers for people in that club, as well as the top cities with the number of people in that club from the various cities. So again, our regional clubs folks can very easily just come and do one of these for each of the clubs, take a screen print, and email them a PDF of this snapshot, and the clubs absolutely love it. So that's a quick overview of the regional clubs. Another thing that we do we're just actually starting to play with is some analysis from our e-newsletter. Our e-newsletter is Speaking of Dartmouth. And so one of the things we actually had the advisor folks help us do was pull in all of the click-through data from one of our issues of Speaking of Dartmouth. And what's very interesting is it gives us a visual representation of when the click-throughs happened from when that email was sent. Kind of shows you what states, where the people are from who did open that issue of the e-newsletter. But then over here on the far right, we have all of the click-throughs. The e-newsletter is just full of little teasers of a lot of different stories. And so it's really nice to be able to see which stories are people clicking on. When they click on it, they are taken to another web page that has a lot of more information about that story. And so these are the click-throughs from the one issue. And as you can see, the one that we pulled, the highest click-through, that's not really a word, but the highest story that people clicked on was the class of 2015, talking about the new incoming class of freshmen, those who have just been accepted. So for instance, if I just select people who read that story, one of the things that's been really interesting is then as we go back and take a look at their class years, not surprisingly, when we see this big jump in years of people who probably have kids about the age who are applying for college or going to college. Not surprising, but it's just very interesting. It also, because of our color scheme, the green again being alumni, the orange being parents, even parents who have kids who are here right now were the ones who were clicking over and reading more about the new incoming class. This is the kind of thing we're just starting to explore how to do. It's pretty laborious right now to get all the click-through data out of our email tool. Right now we're using Harris, and you basically have to go into every single one of the click-throughs in the email tool and upload each click-through list individually, merge it all into a single file, upload that into Advisor. We know there's a strategic partnership. This is a nudge to Doug. We know there's this strategic partnership going on between Advisor and iModules. We're just in the process of switching our online services, including our email tool, to iModules. And what we really want to see is to have an Advisor dashboard just sitting on top of our iModules data so that we don't have to do all this uploading. But this is the kind of thing we're hoping to do in the future, is being able to intersect an Advisor dashboard with our email data so we can quickly go in and start doing this kind of visual analysis on who is reading our stories, who's clicking through the various things, and we're hoping that we will then be able to take that data and better determine what stories people are interested in for future issues of our e-newsletter.
Yeah, Mike, and thanks for mentioning iModules because, yeah, we do have a partnership with them, and they are committed to work with us to get it so the downloads of all the email sent is really easy. And then once you get them, popping them in an Advisor project is actually a piece of cake. You just bring the click-throughs table in, you link them on ID, and then it works like this. But the challenge a lot of people have had is actually getting from the sending vendor the click-throughs, but that hopefully gets better as we kind of open up some of these channels here.
Right. So those were the two examples I wanted to show.
Good, and I know, Roberta, you also wanted to say a few words about ad hoc analysis, and we can maybe close with that, and then just sort of some summary comments.
Yeah, and just not to, again, sound like a commercial, I don't know that we have to, unless Mary Ann, she's actually taken over, maybe she wants to pull this, but We frequently have alumni volunteers contacting us for data, and people that love the travel program, they aspire to take the travel, to go on a trip, and so we frequently have newsletter editors or presidents of classes who are contacting us to say, how many of my classmates are traveling? And in our old systems, if we were just trying to get that information out of advance, it was going to be very labor intensive. We even have we work with a file maker for the daily management of our programs, and it was going to be labor intensive for that process too. And Mary, I could just send a quick message to Mary Ann saying, can you tell me how many people have traveled from the class of '66 with us? And so she could quickly tell me how many there were and how many trips they've taken, and I guess their spouses were also included in there. So it's just it's a tool that allows us to slice and dice, to look at our participants in interesting ways. I think Mary Ann gave an example of that private jet consideration, where when you have a history of engagement, you can look at the similarities, the characteristics of individuals in interesting ways, and allow you to make decisions that have serious budget ramifications. I mean, the private jet program is marketed by a print catalog, basically a multi-page catalog that can be very expensive, and you can't afford to mail that to 20,000 people. So you want to know that the information that you're getting is going into the most likely hands of the people who will go, most likely interested in going. So just in closing, the advisor tool is incredibly valuable to us. It's one that we hold on to, and I'm so glad that Mary Ann has an analytical mind, a thirst for data and love, and we'll sit there and just wonder, hey, I wonder if this person, if these characteristics, if there's anything common I can extrapolate. So we've found the right person to really take this on in our office. She's become the go-to person in all of alumni relations when people are trying to look at the audience in new ways. So thank you for giving us the opportunity to chat. I don't know if anybody else has any comments to close.
While Roberta was talking, I did that quick search for the class of 1966 and how many were traveling, and came up with 105. And I could compare that to the classes before and after, and see, how well connected that class is doing, or if they have something to really be proud of, or if it's an area that they can push and develop in. So that's all I really have. It's been fun.
And I think the cool thing about this is, most of our work has been on the development side, and most of the people in the room have seen that or are doing that. And it's clear a lot of the same things carry over to alumni relations, and these are some of the kind of the key areas where I think you all could get a bunch of benefit by it. And it's almost the same. I mean, Mike, I think the last thing is this project. We did a prospect identification project for Dartmouth's development team, and you basically took that and pretty quickly modified it by taking out some giving and putting in some activities and other things, and on your own pretty much got this together, if I remember correctly.
Correct. Yeah, we built on the development dashboard, and so we have a nightly file that is created just for alumni relations that has these tabs that we've specified that just feeds nightly. So every night we get a refreshed from our database and creating this file for us to use each day.
Great. Well, I want to thank the three of you for the time here. Much appreciated. And let's give a virtual applause to Mike, Roberta, and Mary Ann for spending the time. Thanks much.
Thanks, Doug.
Thank you.